The topic we've chosen to speak about today is developing Indian food palate to international standards. I'm going to read a little between the lines. I think it's more about talking about how the Indian palate is evolving and going from, a very traditional food repertoire, which was restricted to dals and curries and rotis and rice preparations, to something which is a little bit more world-facing and a little bit more curious and explorative. With us, we have a very illustrious panel today. Humbled to be around you guys. We have Chef Sandeep Pandey, the chef of Renaissance Convention Center. To my right is Gauri, of course, who runs the iconic table. And safe to say she has broken quite a few rules and torn a new path. On my left is Chef Sudhir Pai, executive chef of Holiday Inn. Sandeep and Chef Kedar Bobde are from Hyatt Regency. So I'm just going to start with you, Chef Pandey. And what we have seen in the last 10 years has been unprecedented in terms of how things have changed so much. I mean, I think from the 90s, 80s, 70s, it's pretty much been standard. There have been restaurants which have been around forever, Gaylords in Bombay, and you had Berries, and you had those very society at the Oberoi's, and then suddenly boomed. From 10 years ago, everything has changed drastically. So why don't you walk us through what you think has changed and evolved in the dining scene in India and even Bombay, to be more specific?
As per me, personally speaking, there's a lot which has changed in terms of foreign flavors which have come into India, and that could be attributed to a simple television, to the power of media, to the sheer fact that a lot of Indians have traveled abroad and are still traveling abroad. So the one thing that I would like personally to highlight upon would be the influx of Mediterranean food, Mediterranean flavors, primarily because those are, again, very, very strong flavors that are associated with any cuisine from that particular region. And that has kind of transcended into our own being as a big, bold flavor of, be it peppers, be it garlic, be it anchovies. So that's one thing which I have noticed has come into being, the big, bold Mediterranean flavors.
Anchovies, does that go down well with the Indian palate?
Any connoisseur who would have had a classic Caesar anywhere in the world would remember the flavor of anchovies. And again, anchovies is something which is, it's got resonance all over the world. For example, in a fish sauce, in a Thai cuisine, you would have that particular fish flavor which is of fermented fish. And anchovies as a bold flavor are not very, very far from there.
Right, yeah. We also have a tradition of drying our fishes and bombills and stuff like that.
There you go.
Yeah, which are not very far away in flavor profiling.
Sure.
So you're betting that Mediterranean food is what you see catching the imagination of Indian consumers the most?
Sure. I mean, be it Moshe's, be it the pizza places, be it the Mediterranean noodle houses, be it cheeses, be it influx of Mediterranean-inspired products in Horeca. You see it almost everywhere. Olives, olive oil, risotto rice, everywhere.
Thank you. Gauri, how do you have seen the food chain evolve in the last decade?
Well, for starters, I've been part of this industry for all of 3 or 4 years, so I can't say that I've seen, I've witnessed a huge change. I think I'll be speaking more from a personal perspective, and then obviously what I've seen with the restaurant over the last 3 years. I completely agree with what Chef Pandey said, which is that people firstly are much more well-traveled now. So when they're having a cuisine that they've sort of, that's indigenous to, a foreign country in India, then they've begun to expect higher standards because they've had sort of what's authentic probably. So people expect that, and I think that's definitely also supported by the fact that we have importers now who are making those ingredients available to be able to give the consumer an authentic product. So it's the whole industry is changing. It's not just the consumer who's expecting a higher quality product, but it's also that it's being made available throughout the supply chain, and that's a reflection of a more refined palate, and not one that is sort of what people have generically called sort of Indianized food, and I think it's great. So it definitely is a bigger challenge for chefs to keep up with quality, consistency, and just provide a really good product, whatever the cuisine is, whatever your sort of restaurant is catering to. But I definitely think that there's a much more refined palette between our,
Just what do you mean when you say refined palate?
I think that people aren't so much sort of expecting strong flavors. They want you could be having a steak which is just steak. It's not necessarily got a strong sauce going with it. It's not got so many accompaniments. It's just they're willing to experiment with really I mean, if you see, for example, the sort of increasing number of restaurants doing sushi, I don't think sort of Indians were so open to having raw seafood till a few years ago, and now that's become an increasing sort of trend here. And I just think that it's not so. It's just that people they expect a great quality. They expect great quality, and if you're able to provide that, people are open to trying new things and not sort of expecting familiar tastes necessarily, but being open to new tastes, new flavors.
I always see sushi in our country being served with red chili powder. Yeah,
Oh wait, I've never seen that. I don't know where you eat.
it's true. You go to and most of these, you even go to Wasabi right now, they give you red chili. It's true. You people, chili,
I take that
chili
back
oil
then.
with dim sums doused in that stuff.
Well,
How many times do people ask for Tabasco in your restaurant?
Well, okay, it's becoming less and less because we sort of almost always refuse to give it. So, yeah, well, we discourage it, and we encourage people to try the way we prepared it, and so yeah, but it's a tough one.
Hi, good afternoon. Here I would like to say add on few things like India is become globalized, and this globalization has gotten us a lot of foreign investment and overseas traveler. All this overseas traveler coming to us again as a chef to appease them. Very important for us to work towards their palate so they get their home food, which is for us is a foreign food. And there was a time when all these things were available in a classy five-star restaurants only. But going ahead now, the influx of foreign tourists is quite high. So we can see a lot of restaurants opening, like rightly said, a sushi, one thing. A lot of Japanese guests coming in. So we have a sushi. But at the same point of a time, a traditional, cultural rich India has a lot of vegetarian client and we need to cater to them. So we again see a few restaurants doing a nice vegetarian sushi. And as a matter of fact, Japanese guests themselves, they have liked it. So I think there is a small little twist that we need to do it, and it's very important. Taking care that not losing your basic flavors and the authenticity of a product. So that is how is a way to go ahead, I feel. I would give a very good example about Ahmedabad market. Ahmedabad market has recently seen a lot of, again, a Japanese client. And sushi is something in a typical Gujarati market, which is dominantly a vegetarian, is something unheard of. So that is that. And if I go a generation back, where People are well traveled, of course, but then they are not willing to try a foreign food, I would say. So the safest bet for them comes in some similarity in the basic ingredient. Something like a Thai curry, which has got chilies, coconut, and pepper, which we are familiar with. So slowly that fear of unknown is going away from the Indian palate, Indian customer, I would say, and that is what is ticking in.
Chef, you mentioned that we are offering international cuisine to cater primarily to tourists, but I would guess that still about 75% of your customer base, which are not restaurant guests, would be locals.
I would say for me it is around 60-40. 60% is a global client and 40 is a local. Now, for the local client, it's very important that since they have traveled well and they want to have a, let's say, a bolognese, they get the authentic bolognese what they would have eaten in Sicily or a Tuscany somewhere, or a pesto, which is the pesto which comes from Geneva. So that is what our local client look for, the authenticity of a product. So
Chef Pai, you've had a lot of experience. How have you seen things change in the early part of your career to in the recent years?
What I can say is that now the end customer has got the knowledge. He knows exactly what, when you say sushi, how it should taste like. There's information in abundance. You see a TV channel, you see a magazine, this full of information, people are traveling. So whatever you serve, so what the demand for quality, the demand for authenticity is of course coming. Having said that, there are a lot of new cuisines like Mediterranean, Japanese, which are coming out, but that depends on which segment of the market. So even today, 70% of food which is sold in India across hotels or fine dining restaurants is Indian food. But what I can say is, yet there is a change here. People want to taste Indian food, but what is the important aspect in any cuisine which is going to come to India in 2014 is health, nutrition. Okay, that's very, very important. Because people, if you see, for example, I work for a hotel which is, it's versatile. There are Koreans, there are Chinese, there are Indians, 50-50, you know. So when you just put a breakfast buffet, it is so difficult. You have to make sure that every element which the people like to eat for breakfast has to be there. And again, then when you are working for a mid-market brand or not a luxury hotel, you won't have specialized people making exactly their authentic food. But our goal is always to strive towards reaching authenticity and make sure that we give the customer exactly what he wants. So in 2014, I have seen as more and more Indian restaurant coming up, but with more focus, the way Indian food is presented in an international manner, so that it is in the level of all the cuisines which are served abroad. And even if a Western or European who comes down to India, the first quality of food, which the best food will served in India will be Indian cuisine. Everything will be second. Okay? Because the Indians here making an Indian cuisine is so huge that mostly it is North Indian cuisine which is well known. But today there are innovative chefs, the new breed chefs who are using international technology. Okay, they're using international equipment like sous vide, molecular gastronomy, and bringing the international Indian cuisine to the international levels. So I feel that the way to go is, of course, with the new cuisines coming in. Yet, if anybody sitting in this audience, if you consider 7 days, if you're having food, I'm sure 3 to 4 days we all eat Indian food. You know, you're not happy if you don't have Indian. You will try Mediterranean, you'll try Lebanese, but at the end of the day, you'll not be satisfied unless you have had at least 3 times in a week Indian food.
Yeah, we keep coming back to our dal chawal, don't we? We love it. One word I heard everybody use was authenticity. I've always been a little confused about the word authenticity. I really don't know what that is because I've spent some time in Italy and I haven't met 2 Italians who've agreed on, which is the best way of making a simple pasta. So, I mean, what really is termed as authentic? Because we really don't know whether this is. So there's a general sense of this is how it should taste like. But I think that every household carries a slightly different variant of a particular classic dish, even, and everybody has their own little, secret ingredient which they like to add. So when you're always confronted with, I think this is one of the biggest challenges most chefs face is whether we should be authentic or whether we should try and cater to a flavor profile that customers have come to expect. Culturally, growing up in India, you're always exposed to really bold flavors. We don't hold back when it comes to flavors and spices. We really load it on. Whereas maybe Western culture is more concerned with minimalistic intervention and tasting the ingredient and keeping it pure. So it has been my experience as a standalone restaurant here that there are two kinds of things. There's a dish that you want to serve and the dish that people will like at a last dish. So I don't know. I think five stars are a little protected because they have a large international customer base which is in-house walking into them. But Gauri, let me ask you, as a standalone restaurant here, what is the dilemma and how do you cope with it on a daily basis?
I think that, well, okay, so at the table has always been, we've got a menu that it's very eclectic. It's probably not a lot of things that you'll recognize. So I understand what you're saying about authenticity because that sort of comes into more traditional cuisine, more traditional dishes where people can compare it in between different restaurants. Say a simple, I don't know, a simple sort of pizza or a pasta which you expect to be made in a certain way. Whereas with us, we've always sort of, I think, gone sort of a bit, against the grain. And I think I think creativity has been sort of very key with what we've tried to do, which is not give anyone something that they may have had before. So then you're not trying to, you're not trying to, you're trying to avoid that comparison altogether. It's not with that purpose, but that's, I think, where we are today, which is that it's a completely different product. And the fact that people are open to that is, I mean, that's been the best sort of, sort of reinforcement for us to keep doing what we're doing, which is that, people are really open to trying something completely different. So we haven't really had that issue so much of having to sort of whether we do what we want to do or go with what people expect from us, because we've pretty much always veered towards, doing the unexpected, I guess.
And that's very interesting that you don't start off with a label of authenticity. You start off with a premise of innovation and eclectic. And I think that kind of changed things around. Shapandi, what have your experiences been between the authentic and the eclectic and catering to local flavors?
For me, a dal makhni with chipotle butter is not authentic. Let me just put it nice, plain and simple way. A dal makhni is supposed to be dal makhni and there's no two ways about it. Yes, there are certain restaurants who might not use a clarified or a home churned butter to do their dal makhni, or might not, as advertised, put it on a tandoor for 48 hours or overnight. But then a dal makhni is a dal makhni and that's the way it should be made. So that's the authenticity part. Now, coming to your the second observation that, how do we cater to various palates? Do we present them with a dish and say, listen, that's the way it is supposed to be prepared, eat it or leave it? I'll just give you an example. We very often in an Italian restaurant get asked for a spicier pasta. Now again, Italian cuisine, by the virtue of being Italian cuisine, gives us a lot of leeways. For example, you can serve an arrabbiata, which everybody knows is tomatoes, garlic and chilies, or you could have a nice simple aglio olio, which would again be garlic and chilies, but without the tomato sauce. So again, if somebody wants something done to their pasta, there are examples in the cuisine itself which can be suggested to that particular guest or that particular palate without compromising on the essence of the cuisine, which kind of works better for us because it makes both of us happy. The guest is happy and we do not have to compromise on giving him something which is not as per the cuisine.
So you're open to modification?
Sure, open to a modification if the cuisine offers it. I mean, we have to stay true to the cuisine. Otherwise, there's no point doing penne pasta in a makhni gravy just to please a person who's come down, with no offense, from Sector 18 in Chandigarh.
But I think that penne pasta with dal makhani sounds yum, doesn't it?
No, penne pasta with makhni gravy, I've had it and it's yum. I know a very, very senior person in Punjab political circles who loves it, and I made it for him as well. But then that's about it.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's the structure is very similar. You having some carbs with your protein, and you have some sauce, and you need something that fills your stomach, which is our roti or bread, and for Italians is pasta. And I think that's what I think we're really coming to now. Is there's so much possible with the world being your pantry. I mean, we all this time labored under this very heavy weight of authenticity because we had no choice to work with local ingredients, right? Ingredients were only available locally, so your food then reflected, and your skills came with what you could do with those ingredients. But now the world is your pantry, and we can be as experimentative. So, what's the craziest dish you ever made? Something like pasta with dal makhani?
Now, unfortunately, I am a strong believer in the authenticity, the way it should be, the way I would say the grandma used to make it. So instead of doing that, I would rather use the Indian produce to produce something international, something like a finger millet. If I tell someone a ragi, everybody looks down on it. Oh, it's one of the cheap ingredients. But then you mix this ragi with certain pumpkin seeds and linseed and make a nice bread out of it, it becomes a wow factor. So I personally like to do something like that instead of changing what it should be. So same thing goes with your, let's say, a Thai curry or a South Indian food. You do a good presentation. Do not change the recipe, do not change the taste. I would say that. Because a guest would come to me and pay for what? For the product that he wants to eat. If he wants to eat a good Thai curry, he wants to eat a good Thai curry.
But then also sometimes people go and they go in for the chef's interpretation or his styling of cuisine. And I think there's a market for both. Chef Pai, have you seen customers coming and just willing to put themselves in your hands and say, "But you feed us," or are you more err on the conservative side?
That's only if he has already been there and he has. Otherwise, it's very difficult because that's why when you say authenticity, now we are working for a hotel. It's a business traveler. He does not have time. He's there 2 nights with the hotel or 1 night. So the name should be familiar. Okay, what is written on the menu, and it should be at least close to what his expectations are. Whereas in a fine dining standalone restaurant, not necessarily, because they say this is our style of cooking, and this is fine dining. So you can say this is the way we do it. But then we say in a 5-star hotel, a club sandwich, generally expected that these fillings should be there. What you can change is one ingredient. So actually the authenticity is not decided by the chef. It is whether that classical dish, how much can we distort that recipe and how much the customer will accept it. That is the authenticity. It's not decided that I can't change Rogan Josh because it is fixed in his mind that when you say it's nice and slurpy, right chilies with some oil floating. So suddenly, yes, but that is authenticity. Authenticity, the recipe slowly evolves and eventually it will change one day whether, for example, original Rogan Josh does not have tomato in the recipe at all. But I can say every hotel uses tomato puree because you use pure chili and yogurt, you will never be able to digest in Mumbai. So this is not authentic. But with the tomato, the recipe has become authentic. So there's nothing called authentic. You rightly said, it is all how you evolve day by day based on what the customer expects from you.
Yeah. It's hard now to imagine Indian cuisine without tomatoes, but the fact is that tomatoes have not been around. Yeah, it's not an Indian vegetable at all, but it's just made its way into virtually every dish today that you do. So, I mean, here's a thought, okay? I mean, you look at the top 10, I mean, the San Pellegrino list of the top 50 restaurants, which is now generally accepted as a kind of industry standard for best rated restaurants. I mean, all the restaurants that you see in the top 10, no one is doing anything authentic. There, everybody is going for the chef's interpretation or the chef's style of food and his philosophy. And I think and of course they use modern techniques, and or some of them like Farhan Adria would tell you that he uses his influences, but he modernizes it. So which way are you thinking that, I mean, one day if you had your own restaurant, Chef Pandey, would you do something which is more customer focused, or would you follow your heart and your philosophy and create a restaurant? If you're not attached to a five-star, I know that comes with, its requirements of pleasing the guests. But if you were to open up your own small 40-seater restaurant, what would you do?
Well, if I ever had a chance and the money, of course, to open my own 40-seater restaurant, it would obviously be a business restaurant with a soul. I mean, that's how I would describe it. And the soul of the restaurant would be from the purity of ingredients, the efforts of the chef, and obviously it will be an area which would be a fairly open catchment area wherein the guests would come knowing that the food, even if it's not authentic, would be honest. So the ingredients would be honest, the efforts would be honest, the cuisine would be honest. The whole philosophy behind eating in that food would bring pleasure to your heart, would bring a smile to your lips. I know it sounds like a poem, but then, that's what my ideal restaurant would be. So it would be very, very honest ingredients and very, very honest techniques.
Honest as in like food that won't steal from you.
No, I mean, honest ingredients is, if I say something which is grown within 40 kilometers of where my restaurant is, it should be within 40 kilometers where my restaurant is. It should not be that, I'm smuggling it in or flying it out from London, for example.
Gauri, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, I think it's really hard for a restaurant to define itself based on purely on what what customers expect, because today your customer wants this and tomorrow your customer wants something else. And what are you? I mean, you have to define yourself first, with integrity, as you say, based on what you want to do and what you want to offer. And the reality is that you're never ever going to be able to please everyone. So, that's just something that I realized that you have to, accept. And you got to do what you want to do. And those who, you do it with integrity and honestly, as I completely understand what you're saying. And then those who enjoy that and, it sort of appeals to them will keep coming back. Exactly. And I think that they'll appreciate what you're doing, because you're doing, and you'll do it better if it's something that you want to do. And if you're doing it just to please someone else, I think it'll never be quite the same. And it's just something that'll keep changing. You have to define what your restaurant is about yourself, not have other people define it for you, I think.
Obviously, Gauri, you are walking the talk. You are running a restaurant which is very different, and I think in the beginning everybody found it very difficult to slot you in, and I'm pretty sure that they keep facing that. And in all these award shows, they don't know where to put you. But you have a very definite philosophy of your kind of cuisine, and this fresh, healthy, Californian-influenced cuisine, would you say?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think for us, we did struggle with that because people wanted to know, so what cuisine are you? And we were like, well, it's a globally inspired menu. It takes inspiration from many different cuisines. So, and the chef has the freedom to sort of do what he wants. So, I think that, but the way the restaurant sort of, I think the restaurant success just goes to show that customers are actually, that does appeal to customers, and they're open to that philosophy.
Chef, very quickly, what would your restaurant be?
I would say if I open a restaurant, it's for the commercial success for sure. So one thing I have to keep it in mind what my customer likes. One thing. And of course, if I open a restaurant, I need to do something which is my signature. So I have to show my creativity. So for me, the menu mix will be something around 25 to 30% what I want to do. And some part of it would be, let's say, around 50% what customer wants, looking from the market. And the base part will be around 20%, I would say, to earn your basic bread and butter to give the run-of-a-mill product which sells, basically.
It's a clever strategy. First, you give them what they want, and then you slip in what you want, and then hopefully they'll come back for what you want to give them.
I would say it's a soft market. First, get them accustomed to what I want to do. Let them have a look. If they like it, then we can always grow on that selection.
Very cunning chef. Right. Chef Pai.
What I feel it's very important to innovate and evolve. Every cuisine must go through a subtle changes, but wisdom lies in knowing where to stop. Okay? A cuisine shouldn't change so much that the uniqueness and the essence of the cuisine itself is lost. So basically, if you're saying a Mediterranean restaurant, and at least you should have focus on the what are the ingredients of.
My question was, if you were to open up your own restaurant and no baggage of 5-star, what kind of food would you serve? Would you serve something that comes
I would,
from your own beliefs and styles and philosophy, or would you try and cater to the customers?
No, first of all, I will open a restaurant. What I like to do, with being a chef, I should enjoy doing it every day in the kitchen. So my favorite would be opening a seafood restaurant.
Excellent.
And maybe giving the guest not only the choice of Indian, but giving him all the flavors of seafood.
So it'd be more ingredient centric rather than cuisine centric.
Cuisine centric, because that is where you give you the happiness to work in that kitchen.
I think that's a very.
I
interesting-
won't think like a businessman. I would think like a chef. You know.
That's a very interesting idea. I think that is going to happen. There's also a term which is called locavore, which was just added, and we always we don't take a lot of pride in ingredients which are grown locally. We're always saying Italian pasta hai, or New Zealand lamb chops are there, but we don't seem to get. We never ever say is something which grows around Pune or something around that grows Maharashtra, or we're going to focus with 100 kilometers of our restaurant. Why is that?
The problem is when we work for hotels is we have got plenty of vegetables which are very seasonal. If you see during the monsoon, there are a lot of shrubs, there are a lot of herbs which come, which locally my wife goes and picks up from the market. But sitting in the hotel, it's not like working for a standalone. There's a purchase department, there's a yearly tender, and if you have this particular item on the menu, it will never come. So the chef won't be adventurous, and the chef has not got the time to go out, because here you're catering for banquet. Whereas if you own a restaurant and if you're responsible, you'll make sure that you will have a vendor, Whereas there is a lot of systems and processes which are followed. So something which can be supplied year long, only those products we can use. Otherwise, there are fantastic products, but in today's scenario, you see, normal Himachal apples are not available. I don't get normal oranges. Even if I want to use Indian oranges, it's not available. The supplier says it's not there. In the Croppan market, you'll get it. But for a hotel supply, he does not supply. So unfortunately, the market is such that you have all imported vegetables, even if you want to buy it for the hotel, because the vendor doesn't provide. You can go shopping to the local market, you'll get it. But for a hotel vendor, he does not supply local like Lal Mat, like Chauli. They're fantastic greens which are available.
Chauli is an amazing,
fantastic
very
vegetable.
underrated.
But if I have to have it on my menu, I have to receive it fresh every day in the morning. Okay. Similarly with seafood, what you get in the hotels is very limited seafood. So what happens is then the chef is limited to create a menu. He rather depends on frozen, well-packed ingredients which you get from abroad. He tries to make his menu out of those, then working on a local. But if it's a chef-centric business where he owns the restaurant, he's the decision maker, he can surely do that.
Anybody want to add anything to that?
I would like to add something here that I've been fortunate enough with a good materials department and support from the hotel that I have been able to source out all this local product as and when available. Only problem is that the sustainability in Indian market. We do not get this product of the same quality over a period of time. So that's when actually the restriction comes in.
Talking about the seafood which Chef Pai just mentioned, I mean, hotels are a little bit of a different ballgame because we have to have it supplied from a vendor who has submitted us a tender, whom we have audited in terms of its premises for hygiene, who has to give us an FSSAI approved certificate, etc., etc. So it's not as easy as going to that supplier and picking up the catch of the day. So hotels, it becomes a little bit of a situation.
Sure.
So I completely understand that, the scale that hotels work on, and that's one of the advantages that a standalone restaurant does have, which is that you're working with less quantities. So we, in fact, do have what we refer to as the table farm. It's in Alibag, and we've started growing a lot of the produce which we use in the restaurant there. And it's not something that the restaurant can completely sustain itself on, but that's the long-term target. And yeah, I mean, it makes a world of difference to be able to do that. So hopefully, and then you do have producers who are now doing that. You've got your Trikayas and Green Tokri and things. So hopefully that's just going to happen on a larger scale where you can get your produce locally fresh. You can work with your suppliers to grow what you want, and hopefully we'll get there where it'll just reduce costs as well, and the quality is just unbelievable when it's local.
So the conclusion I'm drawing from our conversation today is that a lot of chefs are facing, and looking all over the world to draw inspiration and present it to local palates as well as international travelers. We are facing a certain shortage of good supply chain, and therefore local innovation is going to is a little far away. And I think that standalones are going to be leading the way, and and leading the way when it comes to innovation. And five stars are going to have to catch up a little bit in that frame. Anybody have any questions for our panel?
Could you just wait for the mic to come up to you, please? Yeah.
Hi there. Firstly, thank you very much. Very interesting conversations. All of your restaurants, be it in hotels or standalones, are seemingly quite dependent on imported foods. As we all know, there's been certain challenges with imports of food products throughout last year. To what extent has that affected the types of foods that you're able to put on your plates, and are you going to change the composition of your products going forward?
Who wants to take that?
So, sorry, you meant that because of the dearth of imported products, has it affected us? Is that what you're trying to ask?
Well, there's certain difficulties in imports of products that many importers are facing. Therefore, they're your suppliers in your restaurants. Have you found that there is a shortage of ingredients that you require to do international cuisine?
Sure. The chain which I work for, Marriott, we have hotels in Mumbai, we have hotels in Pune, and we have hotels in Bangalore, and we are almost 14, 15 hotels strong if we cover these three cities. So what we have done is we have got a central purchasing department which deals with purveyors, suppliers directly, and we try and get a lot of food products, especially the imported ones, directly ourselves as well. So that helps us because it just gives us a little bit extra muscle. That's all.
Does that answer your question?
I'll just add to that we faced a huge problem because of the restrictions with imported products, and one of the things that we've done from the very beginning is that we have a daily changing menu because we just have to adapt. So whether it's creating new dishes and taking other dishes off the menu, or trying different products, without compromising on quality. But that's definitely something that we've had to do in the last sort of 6 months, increasingly because of the challenge with imported products.
Yeah.
I've got a question. When onion prices and tomato prices...
So could you hold up the mic, please? Yeah.
When onion and tomato prices soared up to around 80 to 100 bucks per kg, so what all you did? You must have got a maybe instruction from your materials department to use lace, or how did you adjust with the situation?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question very clearly. If you could just...
The question I'm asking is, when onion prices, onion and tomato, they went up to around 80 to 100 bucks per kg just recent past 1 or 2 months back. So how did you deal with the situation so far as menu is concerned and your material departments are concerned?
So how do chefs ensure that inflation is not passed on to the consumer, I guess? Yeah.
Actually, here I would like to say it's a flip side of being in the business, and we cannot pass everything down to the consumer end of the day. So we had to absorb, and these are one of the turbulent time for the business, and we have to live through it.
I think most restaurateurs have absorbed all the inflationary costs, and especially in food. And I think we've just kept absorbing it as much as we can.
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
So thanks for a very appetizing discussion. I have two questions. One, since most of you represent either the hospitality industry or some kind of designer concepts, but I'm sure you are exposed to what's happening in the mass world also on QSR, casual dine format. How different is the trend there compared to hospitality or designer, where people come with an awareness and with the capacity to pay? So that's one question. And the second question was, earlier there used to be a preference for a particular cuisine. It used to be, give me a Chinese cuisine, do you have Mexican? But my observation, being in the industry, it goes that you find people asking for particular flavors from a cuisine, not a cuisine as a whole. They say that, what do you have in Chipotle? What do you have in tahina? Can you make tahina? Can you make teriyaki? So if they are asking for flavors, not a cuisine, then don't you think fusion is an much practical and practical or faster way to to develop the cuisine and give the kind of flavors of the world feel under one?
Can I'll address that. I feel eating, there's no one correct way or one only way, you know. I mean, today I sometimes feel like a McDonald's burger. I know it's whatever it is, but I still do feel like it. And I know that if I go to a QSR restaurant, I'm going to get the same bad burger and I'm going to eat it and I'm going to enjoy it because I know what it is. Right? I'm going there for what it is. There are going to be restaurants. I have noticed there has been an upsurge of multi-cuisine restaurants which are coming back. You know, we went from era which was 12 years ago where there were only multi-cuisine restaurants. All the good ones used to serve you Indian, Chinese and Conti. Okay? And now I think that we went into an era where there was more specialization. You know, there was focus on North Italian, South Italian, Mexican, and there was areas of specialization. I think now recently again you're seeing a trend emerge of specialized multi-cuisine restaurants. So multi-cuisine restaurants which are doing a lot of research and are creating as much authentic cuisine as possible. So and I just think that there's no one particular good way of eating, and a restaurant which defines itself very clearly and lays down expectations. And when the customer is in mood for something, so when a customer is in a mood for an authentic Indian, he's going to a restaurant which positions itself as an authentic Indian restaurant. Or when a customer is in mood for, you know, let's say innovative Californian cuisine, he's going to go to his restaurant table and he's going to enjoy something there. You know, so it really depends. I think a restaurant has to be very clear about what it is. I find the greatest failure rate among restaurants are restaurants which are either trying to be everything or are very confused about what they really are. I think it's very important to first, be clear about what is the kind of food that you're going to deliver, whether it's authentic, experimental, fusion, whatever. And then communicate that very clearly to your customer. So when you are in the mood for fusion, you'll go to a fusion restaurant. You know, but when you're in the mood for something authentic, you'll go to an authentic restaurant. But I don't think one restaurant fits all in that sense.
All right. One more question. Yes, ma'am. We're running out of time, so we'll just go
Sure,
ahead.
it'll be a quick question, more not for the standalone restaurants, but more for people who are operating in the space in hotels. Are you typically looking to follow some of the standards that are set by your counterparts in other geographies? So for example, I know that Marriott runs the Choose Wisely campaign on its fish, and suddenly we hear a lot of John Dory on the menu, and Basa has taken, you know, the restaurant business by storm. Do you necessarily need to follow some of those trends to ensure that you're still relevant in the fine dining, high-end space?
In our case, you rightly said that Basa has taken over. A very beautiful pomfret and surma is not more available, is about 1,500 rupees a kg. The best fish curry you get in India or any fish preparation in Mumbai sitting here is out of a fresh pomfret or a kingfish, but unfortunately it's become so expensive. And like, it depends on hotels to hotels of what segment they're catering to. For example, our hotel is the major segment is MICE, which is conferences, mostly pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies. Day in and day out, there are meetings. We're feeding hundreds and hundreds of people. It's the economics, the cost, what is involved. So obviously, we look for products which are cost effective, and that's why Basa has taken over, because it's all coming away from Cambodia, and still it is sold at 210 rupees kilo. And our pomfret and kingfish is sold at 1,500 rupees a kg, and yet it does not come in the right condition. You know, the way it comes in, the cold chain is not maintained. The quantities are very huge. We cater to about 700 people in a day, and everywhere there's a fish. Second meat option is a fish, and you can't imagine to serve pomfret at the price. With the increase in price of onion, tomatoes, there's been a 25% increase in the food ingredients. I have exactly different categories. In 2014, what is the dairy increase, what is the seafood increase? We'd get an indicator from the food cost controller, which are the areas. So how do we create a menu mix? So like you said, we have to keep changing, and we have to, so this year Basa, next year maybe something else. Some other country, China, will come out with some fish and they will start supplying us, who knows? But we can't get our own surma, we can't get our own pomfret because they're all going to the Middle East.
So would you say that we're not choosing wisely, and you think that...
No, the demand is such that maybe they're getting more money by sending it outside. You know, you see where is 210 rupees a kg. In fact, about 4-5 years back, we had a fantastic bekti which used to come from Calcutta. Now it's extinct. It's not available in Mumbai. There's no bekti. Okay, so it keeps on changing based on where the demand comes from and where the trader shifts it.
I think a lot of this also has to do with infrastructure. We, as a restaurant business, are suffering from last mile connectivity when it comes to even cold chain. And, you know, I mean, things like sustainability and provenance are not really taking hold of you know, our culture. I think we are more, our entire agricultural economy is more concerned with yield rather than artisanal. You know, so it's a slow process. You're beginning to see, you know, changes happen. The vendors, we cook ingredients which are available to us. She has created her own farm, so she's doing her bit. As restaurateurs, we are trying to work with vendors. We do try and explain to them, look, this is what we want. But by large, the agricultural economy as of now is more concerned with just churning out produce and yield, and less focused on artisanal quality and heirloom and stuff like that. But you know, having said that, give it a while. Give it a while. Yeah.
Okay, I guess we are completely out of time. But before we wrap up, you know, Riaz got to ask all the questions. One question to Riaz, as someone who actually puts money behind new formats, new chains. It's very easy to ask a chef, what do you think will happen? But as somebody who has to put his money, fund these restaurants and replicate on a scalable basis, how are you spotting the trend? Are you just going by the template model? If it is Mediterranean, Italian, replicate that. Where are you being able to, or how much freedom do you have to push the boat and then make sure that your money gives returns?
I think what has really changed the most in the last 12 years has been the fact that earlier good food was primarily the exclusive domain of 5 stars. Now, with standalones which are coming in, you are getting really good food, but also you're getting it in cafe-style restaurants, which means that I'm getting very good quality Oriental food, but I'm getting it at cafe prices, which means that my average spend per person is between 500 to 600. I'm not breaking a bank. You know, I can afford to eat that regularly. So I think the real trend is, I think you will definitely have a cuisine with a culture where people want to experiment with new flavors, new tastes, but in a cafe style. So I think that the biggest trend which I'm seeing for going forward, fine dining restaurants are going to come down and they're going to face immense competition with a casual cafe style restaurant serving really good food at affordable prices. And that's the future.
And in that essence of authenticity that you talked about, you raised with the chefs, do you think the format that you are going for will have more experimentation, because that will have a bearing on how people's mass taste changes? Because not everybody has to go to a hotel to taste authenticity, but experimentation with authenticity can happen more at your level and the kind of formats that you are pushing.
Like I said, you just have to be very clear about what you want to do. There will be an audience for a restaurant which is experimentative, and there will be an audience for a restaurant which is authentic. As long as people know what they're coming in for, I think that's it. You just have to let people know. You have to let people know that, look, you know what, we're not doing anything authentic. Like Gauri very clearly said, look, we're not riding that. We have a food philosophy, and we're doing innovative things, and people go to a restaurant to try that cuisine.
So be honest and be transparent. Ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause to a very, very interesting panel led by Riaz Zamlani. Thank you, Riaz, for hosting it, for moderating it.